Well, everybody who watched Big 12 basketball this weekend, probably pretty happy with 4 teams in the Sweet 16. Pay attention to one of those, okay? Now, pay attention to all of them, but one in particular I want to focus in on here, and that would be BYU. Because, well, Houston has incredible consistency, and as long as Kelvin Sampson is going to be there, they will be a wagon, and they look like the new Kansas right now in the Big 12. But don't sleep on the potential of BYU here, not just being able to build on this run, but there are a number of reasons why it looks like the Cougars squared potentially could be the new powers of the Big 12. Welcome into the channel. John Kurtz here. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And make sure you tune into the live shows on Wednesdays and Sundays. All right, so BYU gets to the Sweet 16. They are one of 4 Big 12 teams to do so, and it's a big breakthrough for BYU, which had not been there since the Jimmer days back in 2011. And as he watched on, BYU was able to hold off Wisconsin after playing a phenomenal game offensively, shooting 49, 46, and 93% from the field, the three-point line, and the free throw line, which is what I love about this team, man. I mean, it makes sense when you hire an NBA coach, like coming in with that type of mentality and just like the skill set that I think was already there with the BYU roster, kind of the culture, the way Mark Pope played, like just a very aesthetically pleasing, really good offensive team. But Kevin Young has taken that to another level. And that's one of the reasons I think this team really has a Final Four ceiling. And I said it before the tournament. I called my shot. Now, BYU will have a really tough road from here. Alabama, I think, is very good. And this is one of the, when you see on the outline, like BYU, huge opportunity, big opportunity for the Big 12. If you can knock out one of those big dog SEC teams in Alabama, that would go a long ways for the league. And it helps, put some cold water on this SEC narrative, which if you watch my other video on that here recently, you know, or maybe it hasn't come out yet. You'll see it soon. But you know that there's a lot of deception going on with how the SEC is really treating things with getting 7 of 14 teams into the Sweet 16. I digress. Either way, great stuff by the Cougs to get here already. They took down what was everybody's really popular, trendy upset pick in VCU with no problem, and avenged some demons of losing to an A-10 champ in a 6-11 game last year, and then just really controlled and thumped Wisconsin. I mean, great stuff at the end. Tanji was insane and, brought them back, but held on through Dawson Baker's ridiculous ejection. I mean, just ridiculous ejection. A lot of stuff working against BYU throughout that game. I thought they got a bad whistle. I mean, that's no surprise here. I think most everybody's pretty much on board with that. But just showed the real mettle of this team. And what I love about the potential, not just, this is speaking about this year, what I love about the team, and then big picture, what I love about the program. I like in this more like NBA feeling era where players are getting paid. Like you bring in the NBA coach who's going to have this great offensive team that players will want to come play for, right? That will be important if revenue sharing does level the playing field a little bit, where it's like everybody's spending closer to the same amount of money. It could be more back to like traditional recruiting. And if you've got a guy who's been in the NBA and can say, hey man, I know what it takes to get there. And you're going to play in a system here that's really fun. You'll get to score and it's going to be aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be a really nice recruiting sell. I mean, you probably wouldn't say aesthetically pleasing. You can probably find a sexier way to say it than that. Okay. But I'll leave that to Kevin Young. I'm sure he can do it. So I love that. And they're also really deep. I mean, that's another thing. You can tell kids like, hey, you're going to get playing time. I'm playing 9 guys, 10 plus minutes right now in NCAA tournament games, which is so rare when teams really cut down the rotation in NCAA tournament games. When you get down here toward the end of the season, that's also a big selling point. And to me, that's one of the big reasons why I think like they had potential for a deep run here. You can dip deep into that bench. Guys aren't going to be as gassed there at the end of the game. You can rely on a number of different players. If you do have somebody get kicked out for some completely ridiculous reason, like what happened. So you've got options, and BYU's got options, and they just come at you in waves, highly skilled players that come at you in waves is what I think of when I watch BYU play. And so the offense has been clicking. I like teams with that high offensive ceiling in the tournament. You do run the risk of, yes, Houston, is a team that you might feel better about if they run into a night when the shots aren't falling, because they are such a tough tough defensive team. And so I don't think BYU is on that type of level. But if 2 more games, the shots are really falling at that clip and you're almost going 50, 40, 90, like there's no telling what this team can do. Like Duke is lurking. If you can get past Alabama, right? Most likely you would be seeing Duke, and that will be a tall task. But if BYU's shooting like that, we'll see if you get an off night from Cooper Flagg and company. So I think it's very much still on track. But regardless, the Final Four potential is still on track there for BYU. But regardless of what happens there, if you broaden it out and think about the big picture, I just laid out all the advantages I think Kevin Young can have from a recruiting standpoint and just what he's doing that is so smart, and what BYU has done that is so smart. So smart, in fact, that their arch rival has copied basically the exact same blueprint by hiring Alex Jensen. You also just have all the financial support that you're going to need. We're in an era, a BYU fan told it to me this way once, and I thought it was so wise and made sense. In the past, BYU's always had the resources, right? I mean, there's a ton of resources because of the university, the LDS church, all of this. But BYU was never going to be a school that bent the rules at all. I mean, there was going to be no brown paper bags full of cash, right? Back in the day. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. These are the rules. You can give the players money. That's a thing. And so now you're able to really flex that advantage that you have. We're seeing that. They have AJ DeBonsta coming in next year, which I don't know the specific number, but that's costing multiple millions of dollars to bring him in. You're pairing him with a guy who's been in the NBA and was well respected in NBA circles that can say, hey man, I'll prep you for that. We'll send you on. Money will not be a limiting factor for them at all, that's kind of table stakes to getting in here and being a legitimate power in basketball. It's table stakes. You can't have money being a limiting factor. It doesn't guarantee you anything. See my K-State Wildcats this year, but it will at least get you into the room that you need to be in if you're going to be a power and a consistent winner in college hoops moving forward. So you throw that in there with the momentum that's building with what is happening this season, which has already been, in some ways a historic season for the Cougars, getting to that second weekend for the first time since 2011. Again, just a much needed barrier to break through, kind of a glass ceiling breakthrough here in the first year, by the way, first year of Kevin Young. Now you got all the headlines with DeBonsta. He's going on Stephen A. Smith. People know about this. People will see it next year. There will be a bunch of excitement next year. Obviously, you've got incredible fan support too, right? That's going to help. And you've got a great home court advantage. If you look at what Kansas did for years in the Big 12, it was just never lose at home because they had a building that would just swallow you up. It would just eat you up, swallow you whole, spit you out. And that's definitely potential's there. Potential's there for the Marriott Center, man. It is. It's big and loud enough. You got to get a team then that can deliver. But, Allen Fieldhouse lifted Kansas to many a win over that stretch of 14 straight Big 12 titles itself had at one point. So all the building blocks are there. So people, you better be paying attention to what BYU is doing in this tournament run, and you might want to get used to it because it definitely seems like that's something that could be coming very often. You'll see it a lot in the future.